like to apologize because I'm going to be looking at my phone for pretty much the entirety of this, and that is simply because I have the memory of a goldfish and I cannot remember what I wrote. Secondarily, I would like to say this is my first time in Finland outside of an airport. It's a pretty cool country, other than the fact that it pretty much just looks like Denmark, except way colder. So I feel home. I feel like I'm in an alternate dimension where someone took all the assets of Denmark and spliced it together into Finland. I have no idea what any of you are saying, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. People have been pretty friendly, except when I accidentally lock eyes with someone down in the sales hall, they walk away from me. Okay. Well, yeah, that's what I've been told. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Today's panel will be in two parts. First, I will be telling you about myself and the things I did to get where I am today. After that, there will be a Q&A where you can ask me any questions you want. Are there any aspiring webcomic artists among you? If you can raise your hand. There's a few, yeah, pretty cool. Very epic. Okay, it is my hope that through the stories I'll be sharing with you today that you can pick up several good techniques that will allow you to raise your online popularity. Most panels about webcomics that you can attend at conventions seem to focus primarily on the creative techniques, and while I do think it's important to learn how you create a good story or how you draw good artwork, I feel like a panel about the actual marketing and promotion of yourself is heavily underrepresented at conventions. Getting even a small following with your original comic from an internet population that is already following hundreds or perhaps even thousands of popular creators like Jake Paul and Logan Paul is very tough. So let me start from the very beginning and introduce myself. My name is Mary, and online I go by Maryweather or Maryweathery. Of course, I do believe Desucon has doxed me because they actually put my real legal name on my badge. So if you do manage to get a glimpse of it, you can see what my actual name is. You might know me from my meme comics that get stolen and reposted on 9gag. Through years of vigorous networking, hard work, and abnormal marketing methods, I have found myself with a decently sized audience. I have over, not to flex, 300,000 Twitter followers, over 200,000 Instagram followers, and my most subscribed to comic, Winter Moon, has an audience of 1.2 million active subscribers. Other than Winter Moon, I am the writer of 8 weekly comics. Everywhere and Nowhere, Internet Explorer, Stalker X Stalker, Meme Girls, Fox Girls Are Better, 1 Million Gold, and Clinic of Horrors. And I managed to get all of this without being able to draw at all. That's right, I can't draw. In fact, I work with a large number of illustrators from all over the world, from primarily Asia, America, and Europe. As a complete nobody who couldn't draw and had no money, 8 years ago, I decided that I wanted to write novels. The problem with novels is that nobody wants to read a novel, written by a nobody at least. So I decided to write comics instead. The problem is that, as I mentioned earlier, I cannot draw, and as an awkward teenager with no job, I neither knew an artist or had money to hire one. Throughout this story, there will be several tips and tricks that I highly suggest you to copy if you want to get an online following and even succeed with your comic. The problem is, the following is something that I suggest you don't copy. This was actually kind of rude, but it's funny, so I'll tell you anyway. So there I was, at an anime convention in Denmark. I decided on a whim that I wanted to make comics. So I walked up to the nearest comic artist at the artist alley and asked them to please draw my comic. After giving me a minor speech about all of their achievements in the comic field, trying to hint at me that they probably don't have time to draw some teenager's Naruto fanfic, I decided to say, okay, that's fine. So I took one step to the left and asked the guy sitting next to her. His name was Joachim. He's a very talented Swedish illustrator. And fortunately for me, he was too nice to say no to me. So in an attempt to get me to go away, he said, sure, maybe someday. Little did he know that I was serious about it and kept sending him scripts for 9 months until he finally snapped. And then he said, fine, I'll draw one. So we were set to create a comic for a Danish comic magazine called Comic Party. We worked for months on a 50-page first chapter in the traditional manga style. This was all well and good until we were about to be published in the new issue of Comic Party. Very exciting, which is when the entire magazine went bankrupt and shut down. Very cool. So I decided to upload the entire thing on the internet. Joachim had ambitions in making a manga series in print, which he did actually end up succeeding. It's called Penguin Rumble, and it's pretty cool. But for me, all I had at the time was 100 pages of an unfinished manga and very limited amounts of money. By releasing the manga little by little over a long stretch of time, I did manage to get a small following, but nothing I could really profit off in any way. So a logical solution for me was something called a yonkoma. Yonkoma is Japanese, and it means 4-panel comic. They're quick to write, cheap to commission art for, and while I didn't think about it at the time, they turned out to be perfect for the mobile format. This was probably the accident that gave me the initial boost in popularity. Right around this time, webcomics for smartphone formats were becoming really big, as a huge publisher, Line Webtoon, had just started publishing comics in the West. The traditional manga format, with wide pages, a mix of small and large panels in black and white, did not work well with the vertical smartphone screens at all. So when everyone was taking a few years to switch formats, in a desperate attempt to save money, my comics fit perfectly for the smartphone format. And secondly, which is something I want you to remember, comics that are super short actually become really popular really fast. Seems strange, right? Wouldn't people prefer a long comic? And while that is true for the really huge comics with many millions of weekly readers, but at the very beginning, when you're trying to start out and need quick popularity, shorter comics with episodes that start and end in just a few panels actually do much better in terms of popularity. So I had somehow, through sheer luck and working within a limited budget for art, had actually gotten a head start on the evolution of the entire webcomic industry, as it was just about to have its biggest rise in popularity in internet history. But I was still not popular enough to earn more money than I was spending on these comics. I needed more popularity, and I couldn't put ads on websites because that costs money, which I didn't have. So here's what I did. You guys know those websites that only the worst of villainous criminals go to, right? Manga piracy sites. Manga Rock, Kiss Manga, those ones. You guys totally haven't ever been to one of those, right? Let's be honest though, most anime or manga fans end up going to those websites because for many years, and even still now, finding legal anime or manga is pretty hard to do. And even if you can find it, there's usually not a very big library of it. Because of this, sites where you can read pirated and fan-translated manga still have many, many millions of readers. So here's what I did. These piracy manga sites all steal from scanlation sites like Batoto or Mangadex, where the translators post their translated versions. They usually use bots to automatically download and repost it on their site, which is what Manga Rock and Kiss Manga are notorious for doing. So I just took my own comic, which have the typical manga art style, and I posted it on Mangadex with a little disclaimer after the end of each chapter to go read it for free on Webtoon. Worked like a charm. Many readers who were tired of the constant pop-up ads and scammy clickbait ads on these piracy sites flocked to Webtoon to read my comics for free. Little did the pirates know that I had actually turned their website into my own free marketing platform. So my comics were popping up next to the new issue of One Piece. Pretty cool. The only problem with doing this is that it's actually pretty hard to get it off the piracy site once they put it on there. They're still publishing my comics to this day. But in the age of webcomics, the more views on your content, the better. That's why I allow everyone to repost, translate, or even make edits of my comics if they want to. Many creatives online are very adamant that they will not allow anyone to repost their comic, which is actually not the best way to do things, I find. Don't get me wrong, I totally understand why you wouldn't want random people to repost of your content. But if you want the most eyes possible to see your works, allowing anyone and everyone to repost it on their meme sites or translate it or post it on 9gag or iFunny or wherever they want, you'll get so many people who never saw it before. The way I see it is that if a person sees someone else's upload instead of mine, then they probably wouldn't have seen mine to begin with if it hadn't been posted. Because the Webtoon app is just the best and easiest way to read webcomics anyway, most of these readers just tend to end up installing the app anyway. Because of me allowing the comics to be posted by other people or shared on meme pages, I find that a surprisingly large amount of people have seen those comics somewhere before. And then when they find my official profile, they're much more likely to subscribe or follow. And this all works well with meme comics, of course. Meme comics are something I started doing in 2018, actually. Using the 4-panel formula, I decided to make the first few meme comics, which was about Internet Explorer in the summer of 2018. It got 16,000 retweets in just a few days and exploded my follower count beyond anything I've ever seen. And here comes something else I would like you to listen to carefully, because this is something that's going to help you become popular. Twitter, like every other website, wants to keep people on Twitter. Surprising, right? So what they end up doing is prioritizing posts without links above posts that have links, because they don't want you to leave. That's why when you post a link, your tweet gets much less attention than if you didn't post a link. So posting your comic directly onto social media sites like Twitter or Instagram without a link will end up boosting your post and give it way more attention. Since then, of course, I've been spamming meme comics like Internet Explorer Chan, Duolingo Chan, or that Scottish Pokemon trainer, Earth Chan, or any other types of memes you could imagine, all turned into cute anime girls, and it's caused a massive growth in popularity for me. I'm not saying you have to make meme comics, but making small bite-sized comics fit for social media is a really great way to get a large following right away. You might want to make a really long narrative comic right from the start, but you can actually learn so many things from just doing a few short comics instead. And please remember, finished is better than perfect. Don't spend months or even years planning on making something. There's never going to be the right time to start, so stop waiting for the right time and start now. While you enjoy yourselves at the convention tonight, I want you to think about a short comic you can make. Something you can finish in just 1 or 2 days. Then on Monday, when you are off work or school, draw and finish it and upload it right away. It's okay if it's stupid or bad. I once wrote a comic about a skeleton and I drew it myself in MS Paint, and it's called Spookman, and you can actually read it. He fights Mr. Calcium for the supremacy over Spook City. It's really stupid. And it's got 1,000 subscribers. And yes, so unrelated, I actually didn't write this down, but another thing I just realized I should probably tell you guys about is how did I get so many wonderful Asian illustrators to begin with? I have a large amount of Asian illustrators who are very, very talented. And the reason why is because I went on DeviantArt. And on DeviantArt, back in the day, there was a lot of really good artists. There still is, if you can overlook the weird fetish art. So what I did is well, fun fact, DeviantArt has no limit to how many notes you can send. Notes are private messages on them. So what I did is I typed up the exact same note, and then I copy-pasted it, and I sent it to 1,000 artists in the same day. And at least someone was going to say yes, like purely statistically. So anyway, hold on, it's locked me out. I need to put my thumbprint on it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so once you start to finish quick and easy projects, you're going to be well on your way to becoming huge. And once you've gotten used to finishing these smaller projects, then you'll be ready for bigger challenges. Thank you all for joining tonight. I hope you could get something out of my story. And we're going to have a Q&A now where you can ask any question you want of me, and I'll do my best to answer it honestly. But before that, because I personally, although I may be biased, think I gave a really decent presentation, even though I was too lazy to make a PowerPoint, I would like to make a request of you, which would be, can our tech guy please play the video?
Please clap. Please clap.
Where's Jeb Bush on the screen? Okay, never mind. No one's clapping. Actually, I liked it better when you weren't clapping. It was more awkward. Don't clap next time. I ask you to please clap. It's way funnier that way. Okay, cool. Q&A time. Who wants to ask a question? Yes. Oh, there's a microphone for you.
How much do you pay your artist
A
per
bowl of
panel?
rice per comic. No. How much I pay my artists?
Yeah, per panel.
Per panel. I don't pay per panel, I pay per month. Usually per hour. I think an average is probably $20 an hour, but it's very different really. Depends on the artist, depends on where they are, depends on a lot of different things. But yeah, $20 per hour is the general standard. Yes. Who wants to ask another question?
Yeah, thank you for the story. I actually have a question about the two questions about the platform. The one was the one you mentioned, Webtoon.
Webtoon.
Webtoon, as in Toon.
Yes.
Okay, good. that was one thing I wasn't sure about. Then the second one is about the platform Pixiv. I'm actually a Japanese native speaker, and I'm basically on Pixiv like every day.
Cool.
As a reader. What is there any differences, or like what's your take on the platform? You mentioned DeviantArt, but
Yes. So DeviantArt's kind of taken a fall in recent years. I think they kind of failed to advance forward in their business model. They failed to kind of evolve into a mobile thing, which Pixiv actually did pretty well. Webtoon is not for artwork. It's primarily for comics. So what you're going to see on Webtoon is only comics, and that's the main difference. Webtoon is, of course, a South Korean company. It's based off Line, which is an app that you can use. It's a pretty big company called Naver, and they kind of expanded into America, and that's where a lot of the money that suddenly went into mobile smartphone format webcomics came from. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So I have a question. So with so many people following you, do you find it difficult to manage or interact with your fan base?
Sometimes. It's always a little bit hard. When you reach a certain level of following, you're gonna get weird Instagram DMs from people who are angry at you for not responding to them. Which, although a little bit funny, is also a little bit sad, because it's not like I don't want to respond to people. I just can't always respond to everyone. But yeah, I try my best to interact with my fan base. I try my best to respond to people as I might. But yeah. Next question. Yes.
I have a favor to ask you. You told us you draw your first comic, and you said that it was a shitty one. Can you show us all it from the internet?
You want to see Spookman?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna dub it for you. Can we bring up Spookman? I'll show you. Oh, it's on there. Yeah. It's really bad. The story behind Spookman is one of a legend. Basically, some guy was really angry at me, and he was telling me my comics are only good because of the artwork. So I decided to prove him wrong by making one myself. Unfortunately, I proved him right. Just a moment. I'm gonna get. Oh no, we have to do age verification. Hold on. I'm 100 years old. There we go. 19, 20. Yes, very epic. Okay, hold on. Spookman. One result. Very cool. So how do we put it up on the big screen? There's even a Christmas special. It's very short, don't worry, there's only a few panels. I'm not going to bore you with it forever. Yes. Episode 1. Adventures of Spookman. Give me your money and don't give me any shit. And you can see he works at the bank of whatever. which is a bank, and then Spookman crashes in through the window. Who are you? I am Spookman. I am thoroughly spooked. Please do not bother me anymore, sir. Day is saved. And now you might think this is cringy. This is awful, Mary. What are you doing? Look at this. I'm actually crying right now. This is art. Merryweathery, you good. Merryweathery at the peak of his career. I cannot disagree with you less. Okay, and then episode 2. Oh no, wait, episode 2, sorry. And then on a normal day in Spook City, my bones, they feel slightly weaker than usual. That's right, Maine. I am Mr. Calcium. My purpose is to drain everyone's calcium so my bones become stronger than everyone else's so I can beat everyone else up. Someone help? But I am pure bones. My power is disappearing. I will now take your pure bone calcium for myself. Will Spookman survive? To be continued or whatever. This is like one of my friends drew this. Look, it's Spookman Chan. Very nice. I could get her to do it. I just don't want her to do it. I want to do it myself. So here we have the climactic finish. Adventures of Spookman, episode 3. No, soon all my calcium will be in his possession. Actually, too much calcium is bad for you. He's a nerd and I forgot to draw his arms. And then we have Mr. Calcium realizing his mistake. If I can scroll down. What? This is how it ends. And this is how it was for like 3 years. Until I made the Christmas special. Let me show you real quick. This is Spookman is sitting in his apartment in Spook City. He's oh hello, long time no see. Maybe you're wondering how I defeated Mr. Calcium the last time you saw me. That doesn't matter. There's a far worse man in Spook City. Actually, I can just use the mouse. Yeah, way better. Ho ho ho, Merry Christmas, Spookman. There you are, you piece of shit. What? Spook Fist. And that's the end of that. I finally got an organic clap. It's the first time in my life. Okay, I believe we are ready for another question.
So, since you write the comics and other people draw it, do you ever argue with, or do they argue with you about the plot?
Oh yes.
Do you have any examples?
Yes. So Mayui, do any of you know Winter Moon? Raise your hand if you know the comic Winter Moon. It's a surprisingly few people. It's actually my most popular one. Anyway, so Winter Moon is drawn by this tiny little gremlin from Indonesia named Mayui. And Mayui loves money, and she loves these weird dolls from Japan called Volks dolls, and they cost like $700 a piece, and she forced me to buy one for her. Anyway, so Mayui and I argue constantly because she calls my scripts cringe and bad. But she's like a little sister to me, so I let it slide. Yes. Next one. Wait, I thought that was a hand. It's actually, what is that? I thought that was your hand. Okay, there you go.
Well, I was wondering, because you are a scriptwriter and you were looking for an artist. What would you do as if you were an artist looking for a scriptwriter?
I wouldn't.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so actually, I know this really good artist who had a scriptwriter, and I'm not going to mention names, so I'm going to start drama. All I'm going to say is that it usually doesn't end well. Actually, writers are notoriously awful to work with. The only reason it works with me is because my primary focus is not actually writing. It's more like the marketing and the producing and the meeting people and stuff. That's what I'm good at. And then, as you saw earlier, as I demonstrated live, I'm not actually that good at writing. I'm more like good at marketing my writing. So I have some comics like Stalker X Stalker, which is usually very simple concepts, like two yandere stalkers and they fall in love with each other. What would happen? And a lot of murder and fun ensues. and then Internet Explorer, which is just I take the history of browser wars and turn it into cute anime girls and ad revenue. Basically, I make money. And yeah, next question. I'm just gonna leave it there. Next question. Anyone? Anyone? Please give me a question, please. What about the woman with the staff? No, okay. Yeah. How much time do we have anyway? I can't see. Okay, yeah, go.
So you have a lot of characters in your comics, so like very like meme characters and some like PewDiePie-chan.
Yes.
So who usually does the character designs?
Depends, really. Hinghoi, the artist of Internet Explorer Chan and all the meme comics, he's really good. I have one called Clinic of Horrors, and Clinic of Horrors characters are designed by the artist of Doki Doki Literature Club, which is pretty good. She sometimes does a few designs when I can convince her. Any other questions? Yes, one. Actually, I'm before you. How much time do we have left? Good. Go ahead.
What do you like most about your job?
About what?
About your job that you do?
My
work. Oh.
Oh, my work. Okay. What I like most about it is that a lot of people always have these great ideas. Everyone has them. We're like, oh, I have a great idea for a story. I have a great idea for a novel. I have a great idea for a manga. And I can basically just kind of do whatever I want, which is pretty cool. If I have an idea for a manga, then it's a manga on Monday, which is really cool. And that's my favorite part. It's just finding fun ideas and just getting to do them. Where a lot of other people, they would be kept back by resources or like lack of an artist or whatever. And because I have found myself in such a lucky and wonderful position, which I'm very grateful to every one of my readers for giving me, I can basically just make whatever crazy concept I want. I'm making one about an American girl who's a magical girl, and it's called Magical Democracy Girl. And it's basically she fights a mech, which is like it's a billionaire who controls the mech, and he sucks everyone's money out, and she hits him with a baseball bat. And it's so stupid. It's such an awful idea, but I get to do it. I get to do it. I have that power. It's wonderful. I'm like a god. That's a joke. Don't tweet that. Yeah.
You told us that you were wanting to make comics, but you weren't good at drawing. Did you had another plan if that wouldn't work? So what would be your job right now if this would have been a flop?
I was the same thing that actually gained me the money to actually start this whole thing in the first place. It was selling phones. I'm pretty good at selling phones. So I call people and ask them if they want a new phone subscription, and I don't take no for an answer. Yes, I'm one of those people. Wouldn't you rather have me doing comics, though?
What if one day all this is going to end and you can't make any money from this? What are you gonna do?
Oh, I fucking hope not. That would be the worst day of my life. No, I have good confidence that I've reached a point where I have a high enough following that I'm not just, unless I get banned off every social media, and that doesn't happen unless I'm extremely racist, which thankfully I'm not. What would I do? I don't know. I haven't thought that far. Probably sell more. I'd probably still do comics though. I did comics for years before I ever earned a single. I did comics for like 4 years. My mom thought I was getting scammed by Asian people because I kept sending them money to do comics, and she was like, "That's not real. What are you talking about?" It's like the new Nigerian prince scam or something. Yeah, go next one. Is there another one? Are we done already? Oh, okay, good.
Is there an actual character behind the characters you make?
Sorry?
Is there a guideline to something your characters can't do?
I don't. A guideline to something my characters can't do?
Yeah, characteristics.
Restrictions?
Yeah.
Actually, not really. I haven't really thought about that. Nah, I just have some characters I like to make, and then I have some characters that I don't like to make. And then I kind of just go by that. A lot of my comics are very different. I like to make comedy. Comedy and short character. Oh, a funny thing. There's a character in Winter Moon, and his name is Florence. And the whole idea behind Florence is I basically had to get a character that was so powerful that he could end any conflict in 4 panels. So that's the whole story behind why he can kill everyone with a single flame-throwing thing. So usually my things are kind of focused on being able to work within 8 panels per week. Yeah. Okay. Is that it? Is there any other questions? If not, I'm going to end with an awkward monologue. Okay. You saved everyone. Good.
Thank you very much. I was actually curious about the money part of your this endeavor. You mentioned you make you pay the artists, but then how would you make money out of the comics themselves? Would it be Patreon supporters, or would it be like selling things here, or?
It would be 3 different things. Number 1, ad revenue. Webtoon is able to allow ad revenue on comics now, which you can get after a certain amount of popularity. The second would be Patreon. Patreon's really good. What I would suggest is making bonus content and then advertising it on your free comic, because then you get a free platform to advertise to people all the time. And then the thirdly is I'm also what is called a featured author on Webtoon, which is where they take my comic. They have 2 comics that are featured. They take my comics and then they put them on the official part of the Webtoon app. And on there you get obviously pay, and you get artists get a salary, you get bonuses, you get all of these different things that I'm not allowed to actually say contractually. I'm not allowed to give numbers or any specifics. Yes, that is it. Any other questions? There was one. Yes. Good.
Don't worry.
Everyone, let me know if this is boring. I'll start dancing. Okay.
I'm not gonna ask you to draw my comic, but I think so. But how is your work day?
You want me to draw your comic in MS Paint?
No, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm fine. But how is your basic work day or a work week structured? Like what do you do during days? I mean, you think of.
You'd hate me if I told you. Yes, what I do during work days.
You think of scripts and write emails, but like, do you have some structure? Like
most of my work day goes by talking with people, talking with artists, talking with people who have something to do with the comics, talking with my editor, talking. Sometimes I'll go for a walk and I'll come up with a comic idea. When I come back, I'll write it down. Actually, the writing isn't even that long part of it. It's not even that big of a thing. But yeah, like a usual work day goes with me waking up at 5 p.m. because I have to be awake during American time, because all of my readers are American somehow, which that's not to say you guys don't exist. I love all of you. You're all wonderful, you're beautiful. But yeah, a lot of people have to kind of wake up and be awake during American time, which means I'm basically awake during the dead of night, and I go to sleep like at 12 a.m. or something. So yeah, that's usually a normal work day for me. It just goes by with talking to people and writing a few scripts and stuff. And sometimes I'll play Final Fantasy online. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
My question is related to Webtoon also.
Yeah.
There's the canvas section for the new and less popular comics, and then the originals for the super popular ones. If your comics were ever in the canvas, how fast did they take you in the originals?
totally depends on who you are. I've seen people get picked up almost instantly. I've also seen people where where they were like on the top part of the webtoon page for like over 8 months or something before they got picked up. It's like a webtoon makes a certain amount of comics into official comics, and there's really no real way to discern how they're gonna do it. It's basically just if it's a good comic and if you have a decent amount of readers and if it's like a demographic they're looking for, they're probably gonna try to figure something out. Depends if, and maybe this is pure speculation on my part, but I think individual editors, I think this is not true maybe, I think individual editors have something to say on the matter, like if they're interested in a specific genre or a specific comic, they can kind of take it on board, and then obviously if it turns out really successful, maybe the editor gets some of the credit. But yeah, in terms of Winter Moon, it got featured at around 20,000 subscribers. That's not really the standard nowadays, because you kind of need more subscribers than that. Usually, okay, so if you find yourself in the top 10, you can probably, and if you have a decent release schedule and active reader base, you can probably expect someone to talk to you about it. That's my guess anyway. Sorry for the jumbled up answer.
Thank you.
No problem. Good. Next one. Okay. Oh, yes.
So it seems that you have quite many artists to work for you. So as a freelance illustrator, are you looking for any new artists right now?
Funny thing is, I've actually been asked this before, which is amazing. It's insane. Why would an artist want to ask to work with a writer? Doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, true. I'm actually at the limits of my budget right now. And yeah, I'm at the limits of my budget right now. I probably would consider it, but it would have to be something pretty like spectacular, or someone pretty decently popular, or with a really good art style before I would actually, because I'd have to make my money back pretty fast. Otherwise, it's just going to be a minus on the account. This is the thing. I'm so addicted to making comics. I could make so much money if I didn't just use all of my money to make more comics. I make not a lot of money actually. I use all of it that I could be earning on making comics because it's fun and awesome and I really like it, and it's basically what I've always wanted to spend my money on. Yeah. Yes.
So how often do you update your webcomics?
Once a week is the
Once a week.
general standard. Winter Moon twice a week, and everyone know it twice a week. Sometimes some of them will update more frequently, but generally once a week, because on Webtoon, the amount of time before you get taken off the top something board, the leaderboard or whatever you can call it, is a week after you upload. If you haven't uploaded for a week, you get taken off the board, and it's obviously good promotion to keep your comic in a visible spot, so I try to upload at least once a week, but sometimes it's not so easy, because for example, Hinghoy draws like 3 comics for me now, so yeah, 4 if you count My Incubus Boyfriend, which is a weird one. Anyone else? There was one there. Yes. I'll end it with a really funny story about drama and excitement, by the way.
So there are a lot of YouTube channels that like dub your comics, and
yeah,
a lot of channels that talk about your comics. How much do you think they have affected your popularity?
A lot, actually. I hear from a lot of different people. I used to hear from people like, oh, I found your comic on Manga Rock, or I found your comic on 9gag, or random, not 9gag, no one uses 9gag, but it's funny to say. Yeah, actually, I've been increasingly hearing people say that they found it through YouTube, which is cool, and I actually made a YouTube account now. I have a funny question for you guys. I'm gonna turn this around now. It's Q&A for you guys. Now it's a focus testing meeting. If you prefer Japanese dub over English, can you raise your hand? Japanese over English. And then if you prefer English dubs. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so I'm not wrong then. Yeah, okay, so on my YouTube channel you can actually watch in Japanese with professional Japanese voice actors, which I'm pretty proud of. But yeah, I found that a lot of, as I call them, Zoomers, they prefer English for some reason, and it makes me feel really old. Back when I watched anime, I hated English. Anyway, yeah, what's the next one? Cool. As you can tell, my answers are getting more and more awkward, and that's because I've only slept 3 hours.
Okay, you make your meme comics very quickly. What's your process usually with Hinghoi? Because usually the meme kind of happens and then in the next couple of hours it feels like you have the comic ready.
Do you want to see my process with Hinghoi?
Oh, yes.
Hold on. If I can activate my new phone. I have to use the thumbprint sensor, otherwise it's not the future anymore. Give me a moment. I'm going to show you my process with Hinghoi. This is my process of working with Hinghoi. So you see the jumping cat, that means yes. And then I ask him, do you like new script, friend? And that's his response. It's the cat with the hearts. That's my process with Hinghoi. Then he draws it, he sketches it. And it is very gay, yes. He's a very nice friend of mine. And he draws a sketch of it. And then I usually approve the sketch, or if there's anything wrong with it, I ask for a change, and then he draws, and then he fixes it. The day after, he makes it into a comic. He's actually pretty decently fast. So yeah, it's usually 3 days for a comic. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
By the way, Kalevala Scans, is that a person in the audience? I saw your tweet. Very epic. I like you, by the way. I know who you are.
Are you actually thinking of continuing My Succubus Girlfriend?
No.
Well, that's sad.
I know, right? I probably will make a new one someday. But the old one basically ended awfully. It ended awfully. So I had a Japanese artist do the original series, which was 40 episodes or something, and then it ended, and then it was one of my most popular comics, and I wanted it to continue, obviously, because it's popular. So I got a new artist, and everyone hated the new artist, and the new artist hated the story, and I hated the story because the new artist wasn't drawing it right, and everyone hated it, and I hated it, and he hated it, and so I just said, like, fuck it, I'm not gonna upload anymore, and I'm not gonna address it, and I'm just gonna pretend it doesn't exist. Yes. Any other question? No other question? Because then it's time for a rant about Reddit and drama. Okay, I'm gonna give you the rant. I got banned from R Manga, and so I'm actually really upset about this. Nah, actually he's fine. He unbanned me because people were angry about it. So on R Manga, you're apparently not allowed to upload if you're not ethnically Japanese. So on R Manga, they only want authentic Japanese manga, and I am not Japanese, and therefore my comics do not count as manga, which I'm really angry about. So I went to a meme site instead, and which is called R Animemes, and they actually allowed me to upload there. So I really like R Animemes. So yeah, post your comics on Reddit. It's actually pretty cool, but try to avoid getting banned on R Manga because it actually kind of sucks. It's not fun to be banned from a subreddit. Yes. Any questions about that? If not, then I'm going to say thank you all for joining me today. I'm glad I could end it on a high note about our manga. And yes, thank you all. And if you want to say hi to me, if you want to chat with me, I'm going to stay here for a little bit longer. And then I'm going to go down, well, actually it's up to the second floor where I have my booth, and you can come get a comic or whatever you want. We have keychains, we have comics. We have stickers. Yes, that's it. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Go away.